I never thought I'd be the kind of person who notices someone's hands, but that's where it started with Dashiell. His hands. We were in this cramped break room at the architecture firm where we both worked, and he was explaining something about load-bearing walls to another intern, and I just found myself staring at his fingers. They were long and precise, moving through the air like he was sculpting the building right there in the space between us. I remember thinking, that's weird, right? That I'm noticing this. But I couldn't look away. That was 8 months ago. Now I'm sitting on the floor of his apartment, watching him build a ship in a bottle, and I'm trying to figure out when exactly I fell in love with him. The ship is tiny, maybe 3 inches long, with sails made from actual linen that he cut and stitched himself. He's been working on it for 2 weeks, and tonight he's finally going to seal it inside the bottle. His tongue is poking out slightly from the corner of his mouth in concentration, and there's a smudge of wood glue on his cheek that I want to reach over and wipe away, but I don't, because we're just friends, and that would be weird. Except it wouldn't be weird, would it? We've been weird for months now. I met Dashiell on my first day at Morrison & Lee Architecture. I was 24, fresh out of grad school, desperately trying to look like I belonged in a real firm with real clients and real deadlines. He was 26, already 2 years into the job, and he had this calm competence about him that made everyone else seem frantic by comparison. During the office tour, he shook my hand and said, "You'll do fine. The first month is the hardest, and then you just sort of become part of the furniture." He smiled when he said it, and I noticed he had a small gap between his front teeth that somehow made his whole face more interesting. We didn't become friends right away. For the first few weeks, we were just colleagues who occasionally grabbed coffee from the same pot and talked about render deadlines. But then there was this project, this nightmare of a residential renovation in Pacific Heights, and we got paired together to work on it. The client kept changing their mind about everything. One week they wanted mid-century modern, the next week they wanted industrial loft. Now's the week after that they wanted something they described as Tuscan villa, but make it contemporary. Dashiell and I spent so many late nights in the office redoing elevations and material boards that we started ordering dinner together, and then we started talking about things that weren't work. That's when I learned about the ships. He mentioned it casually one night while we were eating Thai food at our desks at 9 p.m. "I build model ships," he said, like he was commenting on the weather. "Like tall ships, schooners, brigantines, that kind of thing. I know it's kind of an old man hobby, but I find it relaxing." I asked if I could see pictures, and he pulled out his phone and showed me. They were beautiful. Intricate wooden vessels with rigging so detailed you could see individual knots in the lines. Some were in bottles, and some were in display cases. Each one had a small brass plaque with a name: the Sausalito, the Big Sur, the Point Reyes. "They're named after places," I said. "Yeah," he said, and something flickered across his face. "Places that meant something to me. Places I've been that I want to remember." I didn't ask what made those places special. I wish I had. The friendship deepened after that. We started getting lunch together, not just when we were working on the same project, but just because. He'd text me in the morning, "Sushi?" or "That sandwich place," and I'd always say yes. We discovered we both loved old movies, the kind they show at the Castro Theatre on weekends, so we started going together. We'd sit in the dark watching Hitchcock or Billy Wilder, and sometimes our shoulders would touch and neither of us would move away. I started noticing things: the way he laughed with his whole body, the way he listened when people talked, really listened, like he was collecting their words to examine later, the way he rolled his sleeves up exactly 3 turns when he was settling in to work on something detailed, the smell of his soap or cologne or whatever it was, something clean and cedar-like, and I started having these thoughts that I didn't quite know what to do with. I'd dated women in college and grad school, had a girlfriend for most of junior year, another one for a few months after graduation. They were fine, Nice people. I cared about them, but it always felt like I was performing a role I'd been assigned, hitting marks I was supposed to hit. When they wanted to get more serious, I'd feel this wall go up inside me, as in I'd end things before I had to examine too closely why the wall was there. With Dashiell, there was no wall. Or maybe there was, but I wanted to climb over it. I started lying awake at night thinking about him. Not even in a sexual way at first, just thinking about his face, his voice, the way he made me feel calm and electric at the same time. I'd replay conversations we'd had, looking for hidden meanings. Did he hold eye contact too long? Was there something behind that smile? When he touched my shoulder while looking at my computer screen, was that just friendly? Or was that something else? God, I was a mess. The first time he invited me to his apartment was on a Saturday in April. He said he wanted to show me the ship he was working on, and also he was making carbonara for dinner if I wanted to stay. Of course I wanted to stay, and I would have stayed if he was serving cardboard. His apartment was small, a studio in the outer sunset with a view of fog and more fog, but it was completely him. Books everywhere, organized by color. Plants on every surface that got light, and ships. Ships on shelves, ships in bottles, ships in various states of construction on a work table by the window. I walked over to look at them while he opened wine in the kitchen area. Each brass plaque told a story I didn't know. The Mendocino, the Carmel, the Monterey, the Tahoe. You've been to a lot of places, I said. Road trips mostly, he said, bringing me a glass of red wine. I like driving up the coast, stopping wherever looks interesting. I went to Mendocino with my family when I was 12, and it was the first place I really felt like I could breathe, you know? Like I could be whoever I was without anyone watching. So when I finished my first ship, I named it that. And the others. He took a sip of wine. Different trips, different versions of myself I met along the way. He said it lightly, but I heard something underneath. I wanted to ask more, but he changed the subject, showing me the ship he was currently building, a 3-masted schooner with deck details so fine I couldn't believe human hands could make them. We ate carbonara at his tiny table, and we talked about everything. Our families, our childhoods, our dreams for what we wanted to design someday. He told me about growing up in Sacramento, about being a weird kid who liked drawing buildings and reading books about naval history. I told him about growing up in San Jose, and about my dad who wanted me to be an engineer, and my mom who just wanted me to be happy, whatever that meant. "Are you happy?" he asked, and the way he looked at me when he said it made my heart do something complicated. "I think so," I said. "More now than I used to be." "Yeah," he said softly. "Me too." I went home that night and couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the way the lamplight had caught in his hair, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way it felt to be in his space, surrounded by all the things he'd made with his careful hands. And I thought, oh no, this isn't just friendship. This is something else entirely. The problem was, I didn't know if he felt it too. I'd never done this before, never wanted someone like this, never had to navigate the terrifying space between friendship and something more. What if I was reading everything wrong? What if his kindness was just kindness, his attention just attention, his touches just the casual contact of a good friend? What if I ruined everything by wanting more? So I didn't say anything. I just kept showing up, kept getting lunch, kept going to movies, kept finding excuses to be near him. And the feeling kept growing, this tender ache in my chest whenever I saw him, this awareness of exactly where he was in any room we shared. In May, we went on a work trip together to visit a fabrication facility in Petaluma. It was supposed to be just a day trip, but there was a huge accident on the 101 on our way back, and traffic was completely stopped. We sat there for 2 hours, barely moving, and we talked. Really talked about our fears and insecurities, about the pressure we put on ourselves. about what we wanted from life beyond just career success. "I think I'm afraid of being known," Dashiell said at one point, staring out at the brake lights stretching ahead of us. "Like really known. Because what if people see all of me and decide it's not enough?" "You're enough," I said, and I meant it with everything in me. "You're more than enough." He turned to look at me, and there was something in his expression I couldn't quite read. "You don't know all of me," he said quietly. "So let me," I said. We held eye contact for a long moment, and I swear something shifted between us. But then traffic started moving, and the moment passed, and we went back to talking about normal things. That night I lay in bed and thought, I have to tell him. I have to say something before this wanting consumes me entirely. But I didn't. Days turned into weeks, and I stayed quiet. In June, he invited me on a road trip. "Just up to Point Reyes for the day," he said. "I want to scout some locations for a new ship name. Thought you might want to come." I said yes before he finished asking. We left early on a Saturday, stopping for coffee and pastries before heading north. The drive was beautiful, winding through green hills and past dairy farms, the ocean appearing and disappearing between the curves. We talked and laughed and sang badly to old songs on the radio, and I felt so happy I could barely stand it. At Point Reyes, we hiked out to the lighthouse, the wind whipping around us, the Pacific stretching out forever. We stood at the railing looking down at the waves crashing against the rocks, and Dashiell said, "No, this is the kind of place that makes you feel small, but not in a bad way. Like you're part of something bigger." "Yeah," I said, watching him instead of the view. On the hike back, we stopped at a viewpoint, and he took a bunch of photos. Not just of the landscape, but of me. "For reference," he said. "For the ship." "You're naming a ship Point Reyes?" I asked. "Maybe," he said. "If today means something." My heart was pounding. "Does it?" He lowered his phone and looked at me, and I saw something in his face that looked like fear and hope mixed together. "I think it might," he said. But then another couple came up the trail, and the moment broke, and we walked back to the car making small talk about nothing important. On the drive home, I almost said it a dozen times. The words were right there, pressing against my teeth. "I like you. I have feelings for you. I think about you all the time." But every time I opened my mouth, fear choked me silent. What if I was wrong? What if I destroyed our friendship? What if... When he dropped me off at my apartment, he said, "Thanks for coming today. It meant a lot." "Any time," I said, and I got out of the car before I could do something stupid like cry or confess or kiss him. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, we've fallen into this new pattern where I come over to his apartment a few times a week and just exist in his space while he works on ships. He doesn't seem to mind. Actually, he seems to like having me there. He'll explain what he's doing, the techniques he's using, the history of the vessel he's replicating. And I'll sit there pretending to focus on my book or my laptop while actually just watching him create beautiful things with his beautiful hands. Tonight, though, feels different. There's an energy in the air, a tension that makes my skin feel too tight. He's working on getting the ship into the bottle now, using long tweezers and an incredible amount of patience. The masts are hinged so they can fold flat, and once the ship is inside, he'll pull strings to raise them into position. It's like watching surgery, precise and delicate and a little bit magical. "Almost there," he murmurs, more to himself than to me. I watch his face, the concentration, the care he takes with every tiny movement. And I think about all the places he's been, all the ships he's named after moments that mattered. Point Reyes still isn't on his shelf. I wonder if it ever will be. I wonder if that day meant what I thought it meant, or if I've been building something in my head that doesn't exist in reality. "Got it," he says, and the ship slides into the bottle, perfectly positioned. He carefully pulls the strings, and the masts rise, the sails unfurling into their proper shape. It's perfect. He's made something perfect. That's incredible, I say. He looks up at me and smiles, and there's glue on his cheek and sawdust in his hair, and I'm so in love with him I can barely breathe. I'm going to name this one Point Reyes, he says. My heart stops. Yeah. He sets down his tools and turns to face me fully. That day meant something to me. You mean something to me. The air leaves my lungs. Dashiell, let me say this before I lose my nerve, he interrupts. Sir, I've been trying to figure out how to tell you for months, maybe longer. I like you as more than a friend. And I know that might be weird, and if you don't feel the same way, we can pretend I never said anything, but I needed you to know. He's looking at me with those eyes, vulnerable and scared and hopeful, and I realize he's been just as terrified as I have. We've been circling each other for months, both too afraid to be the first one to jump. I feel the same way, I say, and my voice comes out rough. God, Dashiell, I've been losing my mind over you. His expression transforms, relief and joy flooding his features. Really? I think about you constantly. I notice everything about you. Your hands and your voice and the way you listen and the way you create things. I've never felt like this about anyone. He laughs, this bright, surprised sound. I thought I was going crazy. I kept trying to read signals that probably weren't there. They were there, I say. I was just too scared to make them clearer. We're still sitting on the floor a few feet apart, and the space between us feels electric. He reaches out his hand, and I take it, and the touch sends warmth flooding through my entire body. I've never done this before, I admit. Been with a guy, been with anyone I actually felt this way about. Me neither, he says. I mean, I've dated men before, but I've never felt like this. Like I want to tell you everything and know everything about you and just be around you all the time. I want that too, I say. He squeezes my hand. Can I kiss you? I nod, not trusting my voice, and he leans in slowly, giving me time to change my mind. But I don't want to change my mind. I want this more than I've wanted anything. When his lips touch mine, it's gentle and careful and perfect. It feels like coming home to a place I've never been before. His hand comes up to cup my face, and I lean into the touch, and when we pull apart, we're both smiling like idiots. Wow, he says. Yeah, I agree. We kiss again, longer this time, and I feel something unlock inside my chest that I didn't even know was closed. This is what it's supposed to feel like. This is what I've been missing. When we finally break apart, he pulls me against his side, and I rest my head on his shoulder, and we just sit there on his floor surrounded by ships named after places that mattered. I want to take you places, he says quietly. So I want to go on road trips and find new spots to turn into ships. I want to build a whole fleet of memories with you. I'd like that, I say. We stay there for a long time, talking softly about everything and nothing, stealing kisses, learning the geography of each other, and I think about how scared I was, how close I came to never saying anything, to letting fear keep me from this. Over the next few weeks, we figure out what we are together. It's not always smooth. I have moments of panic where I worry I'm not enough, that I don't know how to be what he needs. He has moments where old insecurities surface, where he worries about being too much or not enough. But we talk through it. We're honest with each other in ways I've never been honest with anyone. We go on our first official date to a nice restaurant in the Mission, and I'm so nervous I barely taste the food. But Dashiell reaches across the table and takes my hand, and he says, "It's just me. You don't have to be nervous." And he's right. It is just him, just us, just this thing we're building together. We take more road trips. Bodega Bay, where we eat oysters and walk on the beach and kiss with salt on our lips. Half Moon Bay, where we watch surfers and drink coffee and talk about our dreams. Santa Cruz, where we ride the old wooden roller coaster and he screams louder than I do and we laugh until our sides hurt. Each trip, he takes photos. Each trip, he starts planning a new ship. At work, we're careful at first, not sure how to navigate this new dimension of us in a professional setting. But people notice anyway. The way we look at each other, the way we orbit each other in meetings, and the way we smile at private jokes no one else understands. My parents are surprised when I tell them, but supportive. My mom cries happy tears and says she just wants me to be loved. My dad is quiet for a moment, then says, "Bring him to dinner. I want to meet someone who makes you smile like that." Dashiell's parents already know he's gay, have known since he was 20, but he's nervous for me to meet them anyway. They can be a lot, he warns. But when we drive to Sacramento for Sunday dinner, they're warm and welcoming and clearly thrilled to see their son happy. His mom pulls me aside while we're doing dishes and says, "I haven't seen him like this in years. Thank you for that." And I don't know how to explain that he's done the same for me, that he's shown me parts of myself I didn't know existed. 6 months in, and I spend more nights at his apartment than my own. We fall into rhythms, domestic and comfortable. He makes coffee in the morning while I shower. I cook dinner while he works on ships. We watch old movies curled up on his couch, and sometimes we pay attention and sometimes we get distracted by each other. The ships keep accumulating. The Bodega Bay, the Half Moon Bay, the Santa Cruz. Each one a memory made tangible, a place we've been together. One night he's working on a new bottle ship and I'm reading on the couch and he says, "I'm thinking of naming this one after your street." I look up. My street. "Well, your apartment building, the place I first dropped you off after Point Reyes. The place where I drove away and immediately regretted not kissing you." My chest feels warm. "So you wanted to kiss me that night?" "I wanted to kiss you for months before that night," he says. "I was just terrified." "Me too," I admit. He sets down his tools and comes to sit next to me. "I'm not terrified anymore." "No? No, now I'm just grateful. For you, for this, for every moment that led us here." I kiss him, soft and slow, and I think about the ships on his shelves, all those places, all those memories, all those versions of himself he's preserved in wood and string and glue. And now I'm part of that story. We're building it together. We talk about the future sometimes, about getting a bigger place together, about what we want to design, about trips we want to take. We talk about fears too, about the world not always being kind to people like us, about the challenges we might face. But we also talk about the joy, like about how good it feels to be known, to be loved exactly as we are. I think about the person I was 8 months ago, noticing Dashiell's hands in the break room and not understanding why I couldn't look away. I think about all the fear and confusion and slow realization that followed. And I'm grateful for every awkward moment, every nervous conversation, every time I almost said something but didn't, because it all led here, to him building ships on the floor while I watch, to lazy Sunday mornings and inside jokes and the feeling of his hand in mine, to being brave enough to want something and even braver to reach for it, to learning that love isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's quiet and careful and built piece by piece like a ship in a bottle. Tonight, he finishes the new ship and shows me the brass plaque, and it has my street name on it, the address of my apartment building, the place where our story really began. "It's perfect," I say. "You're perfect," he replies. And even though I know that's not true, I love that he sees me that way. We put the ship on the shelf with all the others, this growing fleet of our shared history. And I think about all the places we'll go, all the ships he'll build, all the moments we'll turn into memories we can hold in our hands. I think about his hands, those careful hands that first caught my attention, and how they feel now when they touch me with intention and love. I think about how lucky I am to be here, to have found this, to have been brave enough to fall. And I know, with absolute certainty, that this is just the beginning.